Well, my name is Elin Kanchev. I am originally from Bulgaria. I was born 1985, and I've been an athlete my whole life, primarily martial arts and bodybuilding here. But first years, I would say, since I was 12 to 20 something, I've done martial arts, and there was a Bulgarian style martial art that looked like MMA. So I was national champion in 2004. That's pretty cool. And I've always lifted weights and had passion for bodybuilding. That's like the athletic side. In terms of jobs, I graduated. I have a business administration degree in University of the city where I'm from, Plovdiv, which is actually a very beautiful city. It's the second largest city in Bulgaria, a historical city, much older than the country itself, a very beautiful place. And I've always been entrepreneurial. I remember even in high school, I sold different things just to make money because we, didn't have enough. So it was pretty cool. And it never occurred that training and business could go together, just because training was just part of my lifestyle. It was just so simple. I never really thought, I'm going to do training and I'm going to create this business or whatever. So I opened my first company in the US in 2014. And I wasn't really sure exactly which direction I was going to go towards. I knew it was going to be fitness, but I wasn't like, okay, am I going to do supplements, online training, something? I wasn't really sure. And then people approached me. They've been approaching me my whole life to help them with training and creating programs and just helping them get better bodies or feel better. And I had just a lot of experience in that. I'm like, sure, I'll do it. And one day I remember somebody asked me, can I pay you to train me? I'm like, yeah, sure, you can pay me. And then that was pretty much the start of the business, which wasn't really a business back then.
Sure.
And then I had another job, and I decided to quit and just fully focus on building this. Again, it wasn't really clear to me in the beginning whether I was going to go into the in-person route, online route, just developing an intellectual product like programs or supplements, because I've always been passionate about all these things, right? And I remember that somebody reached out to me and they said, well, can you help me? I know you're doing fitness. They were like a couple. And I said, sure, I will give you clients. I'll tell you how I train them, what makes me successful, just follow the steps. And I hired them, and they worked for a little bit. And then there was another guy who came and he said, I know you're into fitness. Can you help me get started? And I'm like, sure. And he was like, but my English is not very good. He was from my country. My English is not very good. I don't know how to pass these tests. So I'm like, I guided him literally from step A to becoming a trainer, handed him clients, literally wrote off everything for him. And then I was like, bam, if I can make a trainer from this guy, I can make a trainer from a stone. And that's not to say the guy is a stone. I'm just saying having someone who had that clearly no background. Obviously, the guy worked out and he, liked working out, but
sure.
He had no idea about nutrition. He had no idea about training clients, what to say, how to, and I'm like, okay, that's it. So I'm going to do it in person. I like talking. I like meeting with people. I like the human interaction. I love the human factor. So I'm like, I realize that scalability is probably going to be much harder in person versus online and versus just selling an intellectual product or offering online training. But just the human factor itself was something that I was really, I am really passionate about. And that was the driving force. And obviously I had like a proof of concept. I'm like, okay, if I can make trainer from this guy who had no previous
background in this, right?
Barely speaks English. I remember I wrote all the templates, like text messages templates, like email templates, when you talk to clients, this, and it just worked. And I'm like, okay, if that works, I can make it work with everyone else. And clients was, I remember just my first year coming here. First years, I used to come in the student exchange programs. I worked as a lifeguard at the pool. So I just went to the local pool and just literally walked door to door, all the people who I knew. I'm like, okay, my business card, I'm a trainer, because they all remember. They all remember, like we had a break and I would work out in a breakout, like either swim or do push-ups or sprints or pull-ups, whatever. So everybody remembered me as this, ripped guy who works out all the time. When he's not working, he's working out. I'm like, okay, I'll get it. And I got clients from there, and it just, snowballs from there.
Yeah.
But that's basically the very beginning.
That's amazing, because so you have always been into fitness, and I also have noticed that you're also National Academy of Sports Medicine certified nutrition specialist, behavioral change specialist, and corrective exercise specialist, right?
Yeah, I got all this, and I have a bunch of more certifications, but that's when I first started. I decided, okay, when I'm going to do something, I just want to be as educated as possible. And I literally had no idea where to start in terms of obtaining local accredited programs in the US, right?
Sure.
I'm new in the country at the time. And I just Googled and I figured out, okay, that looks prestigious. That's nationally accredited. So let me just obtain this. And then I was also thinking, what is the bigger problem? Like, I know what to do in terms of training. I know what to do in terms of eating. I know what to do in terms of this and this and that and that. I just tell it to the clients, but then that wasn't really the problem. So the biggest problem was psychological and behavioral. And that's why I figured out, okay, let me go the other route and figure out how people approach the clients, how professionals approach clients. And behavior change specialist is actually a good certification because it's based on APA, and I think they have a good curriculum, I think.
That's awesome, because at the end of the day, it's your habit. If you don't change your thought process, right? If you are, let's say, if I was 300 pounds at this point, and I want to get to a healthier state, it's not just about working out or nutrition. I have to change my thought process and behavior to be able to sustain that change, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. We always say at the end of the day, compliance is what works and adherence to what you're doing. And many times when people ask us, where do we start? I always say, we'll start, just picture yourself, visualize yourself 10 years from now. Do you think what you are going to want to start now will be something that you will be able to sustain and continue doing 10, 20 years later? And if the answer is yes, let's go. If the answer is no, then maybe we can use certain tools or certain approaches to just get them started, but we have to always get to something that will last long. Because if not, we've seen this many times. People would lose 100 pounds, 200 pounds, tremendous changes. And then as soon as they hit that goal or as soon as they hit that milestone, they bounce back. Yeah. Especially now with COVID, we saw that a lot of people used to train with us. We had hundreds of clients prior to COVID. And then all of a sudden, our client rate dropped like 50% like that. And then those clients, 6, 12, more than now, 16 months later, they come back and they say, you know what? You helped me lose 60 pounds and I gained 80 during COVID. So they just go back to the habit. So back to your point, it's a matter of habit, it's a matter of mindset, and it's a matter of just we're creatures of habit. So,
and when those kind of people come back who has sort of gone through a path where it's starting to build a habit, may not have been always working out, but with your help, they've been sort of able to shape their habit in a way. And then obviously COVID impacted everyone. When they're coming back, how do you get them started? Is there a specific process that you follow? Like well,
the hardest part with COVID was the uncertainty, because people would create an expectation of, let me pause for a month. Because here's what happens, right? They have this habit A that is detrimental to their health, right? Sure. Just name whatever: eating standard American diet, drinking alcohol, smoking, using drugs, whatever it is, or just eating bad junk food 100% of their diet. So they gain weight and they're unhealthy. They come to us and we slowly help them shape better relationship with food, create better habits, training, exercising, having better stories about themselves, thinking about that. And then all of a sudden COVID comes, bam, everything is closed. Now, we worked so hard to kind of improve their lifestyles by creating better habits and dropping some bad habits one at a time. And now all that is stopped again. So now we have to figure out how to build new habits. And we talk to them and we say, look, this is something that is very challenging for everybody. And we can't predict when we're going to be open. So our suggestion is we start a new service immediately. We started live virtual training done through Zoom, where on one side of the screen, like we communicate now, but instead of talking, the trainer is navigating the client, and the client is following the cues from the trainer, and then the trainer can actually show and demonstrate an exercise and literally pinpointing cue what needs to be done. Well, a lot of people, again, it's something new. It's a new habit. A lot of people push back and they said, no, I'm just going to wait. And you wait 1 month, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12 months. And now you are going back to your habits. And if we don't have that communication, we try to keep in touch. We actually kept in touch with all of our clients and try to kind of keep their spirits up. Even if we didn't train, we try to keep them up so they can kind of like at least monitor their food and go for a walk or whatever. So have some physical activity, but a lot of the cases, people drop completely everything. So when they come back, it's a little easier than to begin with because they've already had some kind of positive impact from our relationship before that. So we kind of just go back to that. But it's case to case. Everybody is personal. That's why we call it personal training, because different people have different goals, different mindsets, different stories. And we just have to be very personable and figure out whose starting point is where.
I had a chance to see that process, right? You started me with an assessment. We had a one-on-one that one-on-one conversation was very important to me because I was looking for somebody who is a nutritionist and a trainer. I knew my workout. I've always been fairly, regular when it comes to workout, but I wanted to speak to somebody who knows both. And so after the assessment, you and I had a one-on-one conversation, and one of the impressive things was the fact that your trainers, you have built a program that your trainers follow pretty successfully, because I sort of went through the same thing of the whole COVID period. Obviously, I was not going to the gym. I had some equipments in my house. I was sort of managing it, but not at the same level that I used to before.
Prior to that, yes.
But within the 3 months of in your program, I was able to come back to my normal shape, normal routine.
Which is pretty fast, but also to your credit, you've done it before, so it was easier for you to go back just because your body has the memory.
Muscle memory.
You also your mind, you're like, okay, this is, I used to be that, I know I can be that. So just knowing that and working intentionally towards it makes a huge difference.
Let's say I'm really trying to get healthy, right? How big of a part does nutrition play? If you are just working out, on a regular basis, you're doing cardio, you're hitting your weights, but you're not really eating right. How big of a role does it play when it comes to you trying to really get healthy?
So there is a saying that I really like, and this is a saying that I've actually heard back in the day before I even knew I was going to come to America once. And I think you guys have it here the same way. You can't outwork poor diet. So this saying is very true. And but with that being said, there are other things to be considered. You can improve your diet, your blood markers, your weight significantly with just switching your food. Let's say you were eating standard American diet. You wake up, you have a cup of coffee full of sugar and cream, you have a couple of donuts, then you go to work, and then you have, candy bar with another coffee with more sugar and more cream. And then at lunch you go and you get like a, Philly cheesesteak or a whatever, burger, something like that. Or you get a salad with 1,000 calorie worth of dressing that are, not necessarily the ideal nutrients there. And then you go and have something, for dinner. another burger with fries and a couple of beers and all that. Let's say you eat that, right?
Yeah.
You change your food and you go to, now you have something less caloric, less palatable. So your total calories is going to be lower. You're going to have more protein. You're going to have more fiber. If you just change that, of course, you're going to improve your weight. You're going to improve the way you feel. You're going to improve your blood markers. You're just going to improve overall. But something to be said about training. I think training is the driver, and we've observed this with thousands of clients, and not only me personally, but there are studies on it as well that show that when people start training and they're really serious and focused on their training regimen, they adhere much better to other lifestyle changes. So you train hard, and that kind of feels like you almost feel obligated to eat healthier.
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
So this is a big psychological factor. So when somebody asks me in terms of overall health, I would say, well, mindset is extremely important. Your sleep is extremely important. Food is 100%, and training is 100%. Now, if we talk about competitive athletes, and if we talk about what is the biggest exemplification of body composition change, that will be bodybuilding. So if we talk about bodybuilders, I always say nutrition has to be 100%. It's a must. Like, there is no other way. Like, you have certain numbers, you have to hit them. And that's as much as you can do. It's as simple as that. You plan it, you prepare it, and you execute. When it comes down to training, though, it's 100% and then some. So you push further with intensity, bigger, higher intensity than before, and just really push yourself smart. Of course, you have to be smart about that so you don't get injured, because that would basically cost you your performance in your career if you are a competitive professional bodybuilder. But nutrition 100%, training 100%, and then some, because that's going to make the difference between the champion and the regular trainee, is really how much intensity you put in and how much intention you put into your workouts. But both are 100%. I always disagreed with the statement, it's 70% nutrition, 30% train. No, it's 100% each.
Percentage. And everybody wants perfect abs, right? I mean, there's so many different routines everybody has, so many different workouts, so many talks about, how to get the V line and all of that, how to get six abs, six packs. What are some myths, and what would you recommend for someone like me? Let's say I'm really like dying to have one. What would be your advice? What are some of the myths? Like, where would I start?
I can tell you that I always have 8-pack, and that's genetic, meaning that it's 8, not 6. And I probably haven't done abs in 15 years. So the biggest myth is like, get this 30-minute ab workout or 5-minute ab workout, whatever you're working out. It's a muscle. You work on the muscle will grow. If you have a layer of fat on top of it, good luck having abs by just doing ab workout. It's just not going to happen. Yeah. So what you need to do to have abs is to lose body fat. And once you lose enough body fat so your muscles show, then you will have abs. That's pretty much how it works. With that, though, to give, some people store fat in the abdominal section, some in the chest. Different people store fat in different places. I store my fat in the glutes and in the hamstring and in the lower back. So these are my places where the fat trims up, but I never store fat in my abs. So even at my fattest and at my highest of the off season, I always have abs. So if you naturally store fat in your abdominal area, then you got to work a little harder. Then we have another unwritten rule about it. It's like the more, the place where you build your fat first is usually the place where the fat goes last. So you have to, meaning like you lose it fast. So you just got to work a little harder if you're one of those people who have who store fat in the abdominal section. Nothing bad with that. But again, the myth is there is an ab workout. Sure, there is an ab workout. There are many ab workouts. You can do so many exercises about abs. But if you have a layer of fat on top of the muscle, good luck having that muscle show just by working them out.
And that was one of my kind of like shocking thing when I was working with your trainer, John, right? And obviously, naturally, first thing I said, hey, man, 6-pack.
Yeah.
Right? And then as we're working out different routines, but I noticed that he wasn't really focusing just on abs workout that much. And I was like, dude, what
Oh,
happened to
man.
six pack? But he's like, no, listen, as we're working out on other things, we are focusing on your core too. And then
Yeah.
he's like, I think he was saying that, and the most of it is your nutrition. And he said the same thing. He's your, that one layer that you have.
Yeah.
So that,
That's got to go away. We have another saying back in Bulgaria. We say you do abs on the table. So that's how we do the abs. Yeah. And then basically you hide them on the table too, depending on what's on the table. But that's basically how it is. That's the biggest myth. So I think when a lot of people would Google how to make abs, and just for clicks, there'll be so many exercises, websites, links to YouTube with ab workouts. I think that people who buy those workouts, they're just wasting their money if they believe that they will have abs by just doing those exercises.
So you were saying that you don't really have to do abs, specifically abs workout, but then how do you really grow the abs muscle?
But when you exercise, it's a muscle. It's the same as your bicep. You work it out more, it grows, having to, the proper nutrition and recovery, of course. But I would say that the primary work of the core wouldn't be for aesthetics, but would be for other functions. But that's what I believe, and that's what it's. Actually, the truth is like you don't work it out just for the looks, but you work it out for train the abdominals and the midsection for all the other functions. Hold your body straight, for example. But you work them out when we talk. We work our abs when you laugh, when you all these things. We work the abs all the time. It's not like you don't work them out, but again, work them more, they're gonna grow. It's a muscle.
And the nutrition wise, right? Kind of coming back to nutrition. One thing I noticed is that when you are not really monitoring how much what you take, I noticed that I've always struggled in getting the amount of protein that the body need or amount of fiber that the body need. How do you sort of guide somebody to make sure that, let's say somebody is serious, right? Someone really wants to get into the shape that you are in and wants to commit to that sort of discipline. What's your process of sort of getting them to that place?
Yeah, well, first of all, when we start working with clients, we ask them to track their food so we can actually take a look at the intake, take a look at the food sources, take a look at the total caloric intake. On average, 14 days would be ideal because then we have 2 full weeks with 2 full weekends, and we usually find big discrepancies week to weekend. That's something, and then we see that data, we interpret the data, and then we go from there, and we just use universal formulas to calculate how much percentage of the lean body mass or the body mass person needs to consume, how much fats, how much carbs, and we just go from there. Most important would be total caloric intake and protein, I would say, and then in terms of fats, I would say don't go under a certain amount for overall health reasons, but I would leave that preference to clients. Some people would prefer low fat, some people would prefer high fat, low carb diet. I personally like carbs, so my diet is very high in protein, higher than the formulas that we actually use, and then very high in carbs and just moderately high in fats when I'm in my off season. And when I start training towards a competition, of course, I start trimming from my fats and from my carbs, but I usually keep the protein high because I'm trying to have as much protein synthesis as possible so I don't lose as much muscle. But basically data, just interpret the data. Not to make it too overwhelming, we just really want them download an app. MyFitnessPal is a great source. It's free. And then just use it for 14 days and let us see the total caloric intake. Let us see the amount of protein, carbs, fats, fiber that you consume. Also want to see how much water you drink, because some people are just really having one glass a day or not even that much, or the only water they drink is from coffee. So we have those sources.
Wow.
So we have seen that, but usually what we notice after we take a look at our nutrition intake forms is that's like an average 90% of the people that we've trained. And again, we're talking about probably over 1,000 people for the last 7 years. Too high in fats and carbs, too low in protein and fiber, and not enough water. That's like pretty much, I can tell you.
Yeah.
Most people are like that. How to get enough protein? Well, we usually supply a food table. And of course, we say with a disclaimer, if you're allergic or you have any intolerances or preferences, feel free to just select the foods that you can tolerate and are safe for you. But we provide sources of protein, sources of carbs, sources of fats, and foods high in fiber, and people can basically select, mix and match. I'm a big proponent of what's called flexible dieting, meaning that as long as you fit your macros, you have adequate caloric intake, you monitor your protein intake, you can basically eat whatever, but we usually suggest the 80-20 rule, which is 80% of the foods for wholesome sources and then 20% from whatever it is. Just treat yourself with something. It's not a crime as long as you hit the numbers, as long as you don't go overboard. And again, that's going to be, again, psychological factor. Some people would like to adhere to very, very, very strict diets. And if they have a donut, they will be like, oh my gosh, I messed it up. I'm done. I'm not doing this more. I'm not dieting anymore. I can't do this. I failed. And they're done.
Yeah.
Really. So if that's the case, then stay strict and don't slip. But if the case is that having the donut would help you feel better, that's something. I mean, really, I always say the one man's poison is another man's cure. Something that works for me might not work for you. Something that works for you might not work for me. But at the end of the day, the mechanism is the same. If you want to lose weight, if you want to lose fat, you have to be in caloric deficit and you have to eat adequate amounts of protein and just overall eat enough healthy, wholesome foods, and then you can have a little bit of portion to indulge. The lucky for me, I don't come from a country we didn't have at the time like donuts. We didn't have cookies. We didn't have any of these things. So my palates are not like my palate is not struggling to get to that. I'm fine without it. I can. I would eat a cucumber or lettuce or watermelon, or I love meat. So how to get enough protein? Well, my personal choice is meat. I love meat. And just by consuming a lot of meat, I get a lot of protein. But not everybody likes meat. So there are other sources: fish, egg whites. There's some. There are many sources you get it. You get it, and that's when we supply the food table. You can see all the sources that you can get protein from, and you can just pick whatever works for you and for your numbers.
Because obviously there are people who doesn't eat meat. I'm a meat eater too, so I think combination of meat and then protein powder, combination of those kind of works out for me. But people who are not meat eater, do you also provide a list of different sources that they can use?
Sure. I mean, if you're vegan, it's much harder.
Sure.
It's not impossible, but it's much harder. Vegetarian, pescatarian. If you're pescatarian, you obviously eat fish, might eat eggs. So if you have eggs, egg whites, and fish, there you go. That's a good way. Plant sources, high in protein, are also available. Combinations of different plants and seeds are also available. I'm not a fan of it, but it is possible. It is available. And if you are focused and if you have the practice, a lot of people say it's harder. It's harder for me because I don't do it. But if you are vegan and you've been vegan your whole life, it's not harder for you because that's what you're used to. It would be harder for you if I make you eat meat, but
That's true. And then there are times you met people when we talked about working out and especially lifting, their response was that, no, I only do cardio because if I lift, I'm going to get too bulky. Do you hear that too?
Yes, we get that a lot.
Especially a lot of female clients say yes.
Yes, women say that. I would love for that to be true.
I know. I was like, I wish it was that easy.
Yes, I always tell them, don't worry, you won't.
Right.
You won't get that. You won't get, because it's really hard. Like building muscle is hard. Obviously, here in the US, 90% of the population is overweight. And
90%, wow.
80, 90% of the population is overweight. So that kind of relates to the people who, to our clients. And I would say when they go and they say, I'm afraid not to become too bulky or whatever, I always say, don't worry, you won't. It's, but to most people, just to tell you this is a fact. Building muscle is much harder than losing fat. It's just much harder to build muscle. If you're just getting started, if you're a teenager, late teens or early 20s or something, your hormonal balance would be just amazing. Everything is just booming and you're just getting started and you're new, and what we like to call this, you're going to get these virgin gains. So you're going to build a lot of muscle, you're going to lose fat at the same time. But the truth of the matter is that the longer you train, and with age, it becomes much harder to basically recomp. So we usually advise people to pick one goal to either build muscle or lose fat. Unless, again, if you're a beginner, if you're obese, or if you are coming out of a huge break 2-3 years, then sure, you will be able to recomp in the beginning, and then we're going to get the direction that is more important for you, whether it's a building muscle or losing fat. But building muscle is much harder than losing fat, and people who are afraid that they will get too bulky, they shouldn't be afraid, because that's not going to happen.
And then, I'm in my 40s. Obviously, I feel the difference in energy now. And then also when it comes to gaining muscle or staying fit, it's definitely a little bit difficult than what was in my 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
Right. So for someone who is starting off in their 40s or 50s, struggling with trying to stay in shape, do they have a separate type of workout routine or diet that you put them on, or what's different that you do for them?
Well, it's very personal, and that's why we have such an elaborate questionnaire. And that's why the first session is usually a very deep assessment of who they are. So we will just look at who the person is, and we'll go by what their capabilities are. We'll estimate strengths and weaknesses. But in terms of a different workout, it really depends on who the person is. I wouldn't say yes or no just because it's so subjective. I would say, there are some things that a 20-year-old might be able to do much easier than a 60-year-old. And I don't think we should ask a 70-year-old whose goal is to move and to basically
just have flexibility.
To just basically live better lifestyle and age more graciously to deadlift 500 pounds. I don't think that's going to be a good, I don't think
that's a lawsuit.
I don't think that's going to be a good practice. But the point is that I don't think there's really an age limit. Sure. If you're trying to become Mr. Olympia at 60, I don't think that's going to be also possible.
Right.
But it's just common sense when it comes down to assessing. But overall, people have, although a vague idea of, actually a vague wording of their goals, a good idea of what their goals are. And they're easily achievable.
You mentioned Mr. Olympia. So if someone like me were to want to get into bodybuilding, right? I'm fairly healthy, but that's a whole different level. I don't know what my body fat is. I'm guessing probably 20, 14, 15%, I'm guessing. If I want to take it down to, let's say, to 6, 8%, that's still a big number of change, right? Yeah. What would be my process? Is there specific things I can do to actually get me going?
It's the same thing. You keep eating, you keep hitting your numbers, and you keep training. It's really the same thing. It's hard work over time. In terms of training, you might have to increase the number of workout sessions. If you're doing naturally, the only way you're going to build muscle is by protein synthesis. You're not getting any help from drugs. So you have to promote protein synthesis. And that happens with, basically training, resistance training, eating adequate amounts of protein and protein distribution and having, high quality protein that is absorbable and all that. And that's pretty much it. It's not a rocket science.
There's no magic pill.
There are a lot of magic pills, and a lot of magic needles that people use, I assume, and I don't blame them. I don't judge them, but that's not what I chose to do, and that's not what we can advise or teach in our company.
Yeah. How important is sleep in the sense of being healthy, staying healthy, and letting your sleep and break in workout?
It's extremely important. And not only for workout, especially for workout, and if you want to build muscle and recover properly, sleep is extremely important. But just think about how many studies, there are multiple studies and books written that study sleep, and it's so important. Hormonal balance and restoration, brain cell restoration. You sleep more, you're more adequate, you think better. There's just so many benefits of sleeping 7 to 9 hours. It's extremely important.
And then what type of cardio do you do when it comes to we were talking about losing the layer in abs, right? Obviously, you're lifting or working out, eating right. Cardio-wise, what's your go-to cardio?
So my go-to cardio when I compete in bodybuilding is low-intensity steady state, majority of the time. And my go-to cardio when I really like to do cardio and enjoy it would be sprints. But with that being said, let me clarify something. So that we have low intensity, medium intensity, and then we have high intensity. So cardio used in a sense of body composition change would help with offsetting some of the calories that you eat or burn more calories, or purposes to lose more fat over time when you do it consistently. Again, proper diet, proper resistance training, and cardio is an added tool for us to lose more fat. So when our goal is to be strong and to perform well during the resistance training sessions, and we're already in deficit, I would always suggest to go to low intensity steady state, because if you do high intensity, even medium intensity, the requirement for recovery is much higher. So you have more demand, you put more demand on your body, you will recover slower. It takes more time for you to recover from high intensity session. So if you are okay with your recovery and if it doesn't impact your training, it's going to be whatever it is that you prefer. But I would be always cautious, and I would always suggest a low intensity steady state if the focus is resistance training and when you're in caloric deficit. At the end of the day, you might burn more fat during the phase of the high intensity steady state during that phase, but for the 24-hour period, that's going to equalize. So you're going to stop burning that later on, and you're going to burn less during the low intensity steady state but you're going to keep on burning over the 24 period. So it's just a matter of just thinking if both serve you in terms of body composition change the same way, but one is more demanding in terms of recovery, you should select obviously the one that is less demanding for recovery, unless you're a masochist.
Interesting. And then you provide obviously personal training, but you also have corporate services and government services. What type of services do you provide to corporations or other facilities or agencies?
Absolutely. Yeah. So corporations and businesses, we provide entire training program plus facilities management, the same for government.
Oh, nice.
So basically, let's say you're a company, you have a gym, you need somebody to manage the gym. We can do that from opening, closing, cleaning, towel services, teaching, educating people on how to use the equipment. What comes on top of that, classes for the team or the company classes in person, company classes live virtual. We have a live virtual studio, and then we have obviously challenges and education. So it's pretty much full service. If your company needs to or wants to help improve the quality of life and overall wellness to the employees, we can definitely help with that. And that the same thing applies for government services. It's a little more strict there. There are a lot of buildings like Department of Justice or USPTO that have gyms, and management of those gyms is offered. And basically that's pretty much it.
That's awesome. And then, so finally, what's your vision with your company? Obviously, different business works different way. Every business has its challenge. Going from one person, in your case, being just you as a personal trainer. On my case, I started off as one consultant. Yeah. And then just like you thought, okay, I could train one person, that means I could train multiple. I kind of thought of it as, if I can do the job and find projects for myself, I can win projects and have other people work in this too. So it's kind of like I could multiply myself. And then that led to trying to build a business. So it's kind of the same process. What has been your challenge, especially during COVID? I'm sure it impacted you. How did you sort of overcome that challenge? Overall business challenges, how do you deal with those?
Yeah, well, the biggest challenges, I think, in everybody is pretty much the self-belief. But I have a vision, and it's obviously working. And our vision is to grow the company nationwide and to have in-person services nationwide. Our hedgehog concept, basically what we're best at is this one-on-one training. This is our bread and butter. And we are just trying to, and obviously successfully, replicating that same quality of service with the group training, with the live virtual, with the corporate clients that we have. And that's the goal. Another goal is to create, which we're in the process of, online training platform for those who can't or don't want to meet anyone in person, but just to have the full support with database, with training, nutrition, and just support of our coaches. And that is pretty much it. How COVID hit? Well, we hit really hard, but we were lucky. We were able to pivot towards do live virtual using Zoom or either FaceTime or Virgil, different apps, and just provide the same service, but virtually. And we were lucky that a lot of our clients were open to it, so that kind of saved us. And that's it. But we're interested in keep on growing, doing what we're best at, and just add other avenues that can help our clients be successful at their overall health and fitness journey, whether that's foods, supplements, anything that can help our clients be successful is what we're interested in, while we're staying focused on our core business, which is one-on-one personal training. And again, so far successfully growing in the DC metro area. We are interested in expanding nationwide and start offering other services that help people improve their lifestyles.
That's fantastic. And I think another thing I want to point out to whoever is listening, one of the things that really interested me in working with your trainer is the fact that during those times, during the COVID era, or almost at the end of the COVID era, you're also open to providing in-home services. It was not just, me coming to you. You actually had trainer coming to the clients itself, right? That makes it easy a lot of times, I think.
Yeah, that's actually the model. We are an in-home personal training company. 80% of our clients are at their homes. We go and we train them. We bring equipment, or we use whatever equipment they have. We also consult our clients on what kind of equipment they need to purchase. But that's our model. And to be honest, I didn't start in-home personal training because I thought it was so cool, but it was because I didn't have money for a gym. And okay, I'll go anywhere. I'll train you anywhere. Right. And I knew, I can train you at the parking lot if you.
Absolutely.
want to be trained.
But it worked out.